Welcome to episode 51 of Broad Street Hustle. We got a big show for you tonight. We're definitely going to open up with the Sixers. We're going to talk the rest of the NBA playoffs and with past the first round and beyond. Then we're going to get into some Phillies chat. A little housekeeping next week. We will have our draft show, probably do about half the show just on the draft. Some top 10, Eagles specific, couple players here and there, some bets for you. Should be a good show. And then it's Derby week after that. But let's jump into it. As you can see, we got a panel of four back tonight. Kind of back. It hasn't felt like it hasn't been like that for a few weeks now. But I do have Jason Sada with me.
Hey,
Jason,
Tom, how are you?
I'm doing well. Jason, Jimmy the Chalk on the bottom right there.
It's going to look. It could look different depending on how it's set up, but no paper bags this week.
Nah, it's been a better week, definitely for the Sixers. And we got Christopher Michael Mika rocking the Sixers hat.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna all the way through this podcast.
I'm sure he'll be partial, impartial.
Good to be back.
So we did get to share your. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to the show last week, but we did share your NBA picks, so we had a good time with that.
Yeah, I heard that.
At your expense. So even
It wasn't completely chalked out,
Yes,
like
it was.
chalky. It was not chalked out.
No, you just picked the
Well,
Golden State.
three people
And
picked
you
the
picked
same winner.
Milwaukee.
So how am I the
Yeah, but
chalky one
you
when
were
three people picked
chalky
the same winner?
throughout.
No.
Chalk and chalk and chalk and chalk and chalk.
No, I listened to it. I was not chalk like chalky. Chalky's the chalkiest of the chalk.
He was chalky too. He was.
I think we had the same exact picks.
Yeah.
or close to it. I mean,
We didn't have everything.
no, you had Golden State going to the finals. I had Phoenix.
Right.
That's not looking.
All right.
so
Well, let's get into it. Let's see if we still believe in those picks. I guess after a couple games, obviously, and a couple key injuries, maybe. But let's jump into the Sixers. I'll start with you, Jason. Your first impressions of the first two games. I mean, nothing surprised, right? We said the Nets are kind of trash. They can't stop the Sixers. We saw that so far.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting to see the game plan of the Nets because they're obviously denying Embiid the ball, and if he does get the ball, they're double and triple teaming him. So they're totally committed to just stopping Embiid. Now, hasn't worked, right? The first game especially, Harden was hitting threes, and Harris has had a great series. We could get into all that, but like you said, it's a lot of what we expected. Although the second game was a little bit of a struggle. The first half they did not look good. The Sixers. Harden was awful. Maxey stepped up. I didn't like Maxey's first game, to be honest with you, but Maxey's really stepped up in game two.
Yeah, but I'm getting the impression that when Harden plays well, has games where like the game one he plays well, I think you're going to see Maxey take that kind of back seat, and then the games where Harden's struggling, maybe Maxey kind of rises like he did. I mean, it's starting to show a theme a little bit there.
But there are two guys in particular that I'd like to talk about, and one guy is, you guys know I am not a fan of Tobias Harris at all, but I'll have to give the guy credit. I mean, he has really played a good first two games. He's been aggressive, especially the last game. He's been rebounding. He's been playing defense. He's really played well in this series. And the other guy is another guy I'm not a big fan of, is Paul Reed.
Yep.
I think Reed has given him a lot of good energy minutes. Now maybe it's because the Nets have a small lineup out there, and he kind of fits in with that. But those are the two guys that I really am impressed with in the series, and I think they're playing well.
Yeah, man. Paul Reed just doesn't. He doesn't get a call though. They're on him. I mean, I've seen him some clean blocks, and he gets calls against him. But yeah. I mean, you said it. For me, Tucker. I mean, we all talked about that
Game
Tucker
one,
kid.
Tucker. Game two.
Well, he still had offensive rebounds. He still
he
played.
was doing
I'm not looking for him to score. I mean,
Yeah.
if he's open in the corner and they throw it to him, and he has to hit that shot. But that's a bonus. I mean, having 7 rebounds, 5 offensive in the first game.
Yeah.
There was one particular series where it was like such the PJ Tucker where he I think he agitated, did something. He set 2 picks, I think one for Embiid, one for Harden, or Harris. Then Harris misses the shot. He jumps over the guy, gets the rebound, passes it back to somebody who was open, and that guy scores. It was just like the ultimate PJ Tucker
Yeah.
possession. So definitely a bonus there. I enjoy, I'm glad that Embiid is accepting that he's getting double teamed, and instead of trying to dribble out of it, which he's done in years past, he's passing out of
He
it,
did
hitting the
have eight
open guys
turnovers. He did have
in
eight turnovers in game
game two,
two.
right? Yeah, and that's why that was a closer, or they were losing for.
Yeah.
I mean, they only had 44 points in halfway through the third quarter, but you're seeing more positives with him when it comes to that. I'll be curious to see if the Nets continue that strategy. I mean,
I
it's
think they
not
will.
working, but not doing that, I don't can't imagine would also work.
Yeah, I
And we'll
still
get
think
it.
they're going to steal a game. I think they're going to steal one of these two. They're just going to get hot and hit a bunch of threes and
Yeah, traditionally, it's this game that they're back home. They're going to
yeah,
throw everything at them.
yep.
The Sixers got to withstand it. But even if the Sixers win, then it definitely could see a letdown game. I still think it's a sweep. I said that from the beginning. I know sweeps are tough, of course, but I just think the Nets are garbage. They're garbage. I mean,
They they shot
Bridges
55%. The Nets shot 55% in game one and lost by 20 points.
they shot. We even I think me and Chalky offline must have talked. They shot like 68% in the first half, and we're down 10 points. And
Right.
like
That
it,
if that tells you anything, I mean, come on. I mean, they played their best game they could possibly play in game one and lost by 20 points. I mean, of course, they turned the ball over 19 times. That's problem. So if you're gonna you can shoot 55%, but if you're gonna turn the ball over 19 times, you're still gonna lose the game more than likely.
But Harden also went 7 for 13 and threes in that game.
Yeah, well,
yeah, they've set a record for
he was
21
great.
threes. No, but it's going to be a game, like Jason said, it's going to be a game where, like game two, where the Nets are playing well or well-ish, and the Sixers aren't. And instead of the Sixers kind of turning that switch, they just kind of play flat the whole game, and that's the game they kind of steal if it happens. Chalky, any impressions?
I mean, it's kind of what you wanted to see him do. I mean, sure, I'd like to see him win both games by 30, but like Meeker said, that first game, Brooklyn shot a ridiculous field goal percentage, and between offensive rebounds and turnovers, the Sixers had the lead, and they were shooting better than 50% from three in that first game in the first half, which gave them that differential. And the Nets. I mean, game one, Mikal Bridges goes for 20 plus in the first half, and then doesn't really do much in the second half. Game two, it was Johnson that had a 20 plus point first half, and then second half, really nothing. So I would say the fact that they didn't. It's not that when they came out flat Monday night, but they were a little bit sloppy and they had energy. It's just like shots weren't going down, and they still got out of the first half only down 5 points. I mean, that was like a 1999 score. It was like 49-45 or whatever it was at the half. And then to Tommy, what you were saying about the Embiid strategy. In game two, they stopped doubling Embiid, and that lasted like 5 minutes because then he started going off, and then they had to go back and change that strategy again. So, I mean, they just don't have a lot of answers for what the Sixers can do. The two guys that I was going to mention were the two that Jason mentioned right off the bat. I mean, if you talk about guys exceeding expectations, I think you got to say Harris and you got to say Reed. They've won the non-Embiid minutes. Again, you're not playing Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson here, but that's been a struggle all year. And then Harris is 20 plus in both games. He's been the most consistent player game over game, I'd say. With Embiid had those turnover problems, although a couple of the turnovers were like at the very end of the game, he didn't care. But he also, in game two, he showed some of that little, I don't know if it was on TV, I was at the game, but one of the first possessions down into the Nets basket, he got tangled up with, I guess it was Claxton, and he was looking for a call. And then he went out of his way to try to draw a call on the offensive side, and they turned the ball over. And then Johnson dunked on him. And then I'm thinking to myself, this is minus 1,000. He's going to demand the ball and end up turning it over. And that's exactly what happened. So he still has those moments, and you can get away with them against the Nets. But good effort both nights. And Tucker didn't score last Monday night, but he got a bunch of rebounds, kept plays alive that got plays for, I think, Harris and Maxey, which kind of, shifted everything for them in that third quarter. Harden does concern me a little bit because he's not making anything inside the arc, and he's not getting to the free throw line. And I don't trust him to be going 7 for 13 very often from three. But to what you were saying, Tom, Maxey took 8 shots in the first game, and he took 13 alone from three in the second game. So I think he kind of sees that maybe he needs to step up when other guys aren't quite picking it up, but like to see that assertiveness more often, whether Harden's struggling or not.
Yeah, the only thing with that is it's still only one basketball. It's not like everybody can't have, somebody's going to have to take a back seat when somebody else is everybody's not going to have 20. The only thing I'll say about Harris is I want to say last year he did this too. Wasn't it the first series? He looked good, and we said, oh, Harris is, he's playing, but then they start playing a better team or getting the pressures on more, and you start to see Harris kind of shell up. So, I'll still be a little bit careful of the Harris love that we give out here.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, what we've seen so far, he played 2 good games. Now, I'm not convinced it's going to continue, like you said, but give him credit.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you go around the league, nobody's winning by 30 points every game. I mean, all the games have been, even this, like the Celtics pulled away, they had 2 double-digit wins, but so did the Sixers. I mean, they're not, like at the end of the game, they're still winning by double digits. I mean, they're playing other NBA players. They're not going to lead by 40 the whole game and win. I mean, they're pretty convincing wins. So I just take very little from the series because I just think the Nets are just total trash. Meeker,
I'm sorry. Go to Meeker. I'll come back.
Meeker, anything to add?
Not much. I mean, I just think that they've played good perimeter defense in Game 2 and the second half of Game 1. And they clamped down on Bridges in Game 1. They clamped down on Johnson in Game 2.
Did they play good perimeter defense in Game 2, or did the Nets just not hit shots in Game 2?
I mean, it comes hand in hand. I mean, they were 13 of 42 from threes. We were texting back and forth. I said the one thing I don't like is that in Game 1 they were getting a lot of open looks. In Game 2, I didn't see as many open looks. There were some more contested shots in Game 2. And I mean, it showed, right? Because they were 13 of 42 from 3. One of the things that Chalky was talking about in the podcast I wasn't present at was about Maxey and being aggressive, right? You said that, when Maxey doesn't shoot, you're like saying, why didn't you shoot? And when he takes a shot, you're never one to say he should have made that shot. He should have taken that shot. Well, in Game 2, I think that he was aggressive, and I think they're going to need that going into the latter rounds of this playoffs, because I don't think they're going to be able to depend on Harden and Embiid to carry them offensively. And if Harris throws in his 20 points and 10 rebounds a game, I mean, they're going to be tough. But I was really impressed, like you said, Jay, with Reed. He just gave them great minutes, allowed them to rest Embiid without getting buried in the game, which they weren't ever really in danger of when they rested Embiid. But if you can get quality minutes like that and you can keep Embiid on the bench and fresh for the last 5 minutes, that's huge. And Doc's making the substitutions at the right time. So far, he's coached 2 good games. I know that Brooklyn is kind of trash, like Tommy's saying, but so far the formula has been good, and I like the way they're playing. I never doubted, even after the first half, that they would lose last night. Monday night, I should say.
Down by 5, and they played so poorly.
Yeah.
Down by 5, you know that they were going to win the game.
And then Doc gave the come on speech.
Yeah, he just kept saying, come on.
Come on. And they went on a 22-4
Well, so
run.
it's interesting. So is that what they showed on TV?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
So some I was listening to said that they can't, when they film that in the huddle, the broadcast network can't show any strategy talk. So all they can show is just like, hey, you're doing a good job, or like, you guys need to play better or stay focused. So it's really pointless, right? But they can't talk about, like, when he comes off the screen, you need to drop down and go underneath. Like, they can't show that.
Yeah. But it's the motivation.
They used to be able to show that. I don't know why
they used to show the clip. You used to see the clipboard and them drawing on the clipboard.
I don't know. But so I'm not as, what I wanted to say earlier was I'm not as, look, Doc's done a good job to a certain extent. I'm not going to be giving as much praise. The one thing watching last night was, they have matchup exploits that they can do, especially like if stuff shifts in game, and I don't feel like they are taking advantage enough. Now, last week Jason talked about when Herter killed the Sixers in the Atlanta series, right? What was the main reason Herter killed the Sixers? Do you remember?
He hit a lot of shots.
He was hitting
Well,
wide open threes.
Who was guarding him?
With JJ Redick, was it? Or
No,
I don't
no.
remember.
So Danny Green got hurt, and Steph Curry had to guard him for a lot of the series, and they just kept going to him. And Seth Curry, who I liked here, and he's a good shooter, he can't play defense. Seth, he got a lot of like fourth quarter minutes last night, and they were just not hunting that matchup. He was on McDaniels, and McDaniels just kind of stood there. Harden wasn't trying to switch off. They weren't trying to do anything. Like I would go at him every single time, and I hope the excuse is he didn't want to take advantage of him because he's his son-in-law. But like that's he was the worst defender on the court. He's worse than Harden at that time of either team, and they made no effort to try and exploit that potential mismatch or get a switch or anything like that. So that was the one negative I would say about Doc. But
Well,
he's
who would you play to exploit him? What matchup would you play to
you just
exploit that?
you try to run a switch or get a pick and roll. Like okay, like you can hide him on McDaniels because McDaniels isn't going to get that involved, and he got a lot of the late minutes as opposed to Tucker, I guess, last night or Monday night. I keep saying last night, but you try to run something. If Harden's up at the point, you have McDaniels come up, and he's either got to switch or they got to try to slide around, and then you try to get a mismatch, or Maxey can run something off the dribble.
Well, you don't know
but
what their response is going to be. I mean, and the Sixers had the game, and yeah, maybe they were up 8 or 9, but the game was like they were just getting to the whistle at the end in the fourth quarter. I mean, you're looking at it like they're playing in the '92 Pistons. They're playing the Nets. They could have put blindfolds on and got a win. I mean,
they could have, yeah, but
look,
I mean,
no, I'm not a big Doc fan, but I feel like we're really trying to find ways to get on them if we're going to start talking about son-in-law mismatches and things like that. So I don't know.
play to your advantage. They had an advantage that they didn't exploit it.
Yeah, I think there's more to it than just as easy as a matchup. But I mean, we just got to get through this series, get everybody healthy, and move on.
Before we move on, I have two, I think, great spot bets. I'll have another one later in the show, but for this series, if you look on DraftKings, Embiid is still minus 250 to lead the series in points. Bridges is plus 145. Now, right now, Bridges has 51 points, Embiid has 46. But the two guys behind those guys, which the odds are insane, is Maxey is 22-1. He has 46 points. Cam Johnson is 100-1, and he has 46 points. Now, my point of all this is, I think they're going to continue to just deny Embiid the ball and double and triple team Embiid. And even if they don't, and the Sixers get big leads and wind up blowing them out in one of these games, they're gonna sit Embiid. So I think the bets are 22-1 on Maxey and 100-1 on Cam Johnson. Why not throw $5 on those or $10 or whatever? I mean, I think those are great odds. I don't think the Nets are going to allow Embiid to beat them. Now, Embiid's great, and he still might score 25 or 30 points, but he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah,
their
the issue
strategy isn't working either.
And
Their
the issue
strategy
is
isn't
even
working.
on an off game, like Embiid doesn't have a good game, he's still going to drop 22, 23, 24. So you need is Maxey going to do that again? That's
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I
That's
think
why
that's
they're
and that's why it's
22-1.
minus 2. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
So,
and Maker saying it's not working. I mean, it's not because they've lost both games pretty bit, but it's the best shot they have because
That's the
what
best-
did, what
the best
what
shot
didn't
they
work
have,
was especially Monday night when they weren't doubling and then Embiid started going off and then they just switched back and then Sixers started hitting corner threes. So that first half where they turned the ball over, they weren't hitting the shots. You got to hope they get that for a whole game. I still think there's going to be a game that they just come out and don't have enough life. They get lazy and they just don't play a full game, and that's the
agree.
game Brooklyn ends up stealing one of the next two.
yeah, the
and
only
the Sixers
thing with
ended
that,
in 5.
The only thing with that is Nets have to all play. Like there might be the Nets also might play that type of way too because they're not in the series and they don't
Yeah.
really have a chance.
I think they got guys that play hard, but the Sixers don't have to play hard for a full game to beat them. And if they just don't come out firing and they get down by 15 or something and they don't turn it on at the right time, they're notorious this year at least. They come back and then they just fall short in a bunch of games. They're good enough to do that and still win. Until I don't see it happen, it usually happens once a series. So I'm going to think it happens in one of the next two.
They're not going to start. I mean, I know this. I probably know that they're not going to. They're not going to start. Like if both Boston and the Sixers sweep, and then the other teams, like I don't know, they're done in like 5 games or 6 games, which probably won't happen at this point. They're not going to start any earlier, right?
No.
So they're scheduled to start whenever they start second round, no matter if it's a sweep by both teams.
Yeah, they're
I
gonna
know
be.
at one time they used to play that second round while the first round was still going on.
Yeah,
I just don't know if
I
they still do
think
that.
you have a chance of like having game one the same day as a game seven, like in especially if it's like a Western Conference versus an Eastern Conference setup. Like if both teams sweep and the other teams go 6-7 games, they're not going to start game one super early because they kind of have a general schedule in place for the finals and they don't want too big of a gaps when it comes to that. But I mean, if everybody sweeps or gets out in five, they'll start those games early. But I don't think, yeah, you're not going to have like with 2 games left in another series potentially. I'm starting the Sixers Celtics.
You also have to remember Boston has a legitimate hockey team, so they are in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
there's going to be scheduling conflicts too.
Exactly.
What
yeah.
what can you get more into that, Jason? What is a legitimate hockey
So it's
team?
a
I'm not
team
familiar.
that is relevant, that
Had the most
actually
points
has
ever.
has a chance to make the playoffs and actually contend. We haven't
Okay,
had that for
okay.
like 20 years here.
It's
but
not a
it's-
team who's terrible all year and then likes to win a few games at the end of the year to blow
Yeah,
their,
and
their
then
draft
ruin their
percentages.
Draft. Right,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
No,
got it.
it's a legitimate
Got
contending
it.
hockey team.
I got it. Understand. All right, let's. Anything else on the Sixers before we move to the rest of the league? I think we got it covered.
So
They play-
just a schedule thing. I just looked it up. So right now, NBA has May 1st and 2nd listed as the start of the semifinals, which will be the next round. Possibly move up to April 29 or 30 if series end quicker, but it's not going to be before the 29th. It looks
they're-
like.
but that would be dependent on if all the series are kind of over, not one. Or
Yeah, so it looks like first or second, no matter what. But they might move it up 2 days if everybody gets done quickly.
If
But it's not going
everybody-
to. It's not going to end. If the Sixers end at Saturday, that'll be the. If 7 days ahead of that or whatever, they're not going to move up past that.
Just leave
29th.
the afternoon of May 6th not scheduled for a Sixers Celtics game.
We
All
can
right,
hope.
let's. I mean, we don't have to go through every series, I guess. I maybe just pinpoint. Let's talk about the obvious one, which is Milwaukee, Miami, with the injury to the Greek Freak. He is not playing tonight. Although they were still, I think, a 5 or 6.5 point
Six.
favorite when I saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's out. Miami took game one. He's not playing tonight. What are we thinking? Is Miami in the series now? Is that a legitimate chance that they can
Yeah.
win the series?
If he doesn't play past this, I think they have a legitimate shot at beating them.
I just for me, like Tommy said, the spread was still 6, and because I was ready to jump all over Milwaukee if it was even minus 110 or something like that, because Milwaukee's winning tonight. I think they're going. I don't know if the game even started yet or if they are winning, but they're going to win the game tonight. Obviously, when you look at the odds and stuff, I still think Milwaukee could possibly win the series without Giannis. I don't think they could beat the Sixers or whoever they would play next round. I'm sorry, the Knicks or Cleveland
Cavs.
without Giannis. But I think they could beat Miami without Giannis.
Yeah, same.
Miami losing Hero hurts because they're not super deep.
Yeah, that was big.
So losing, it's not as big as Giannis, but now if Hero was healthy, then I think it's game 2 becomes really in play. Like Milwaukee probably hasn't tipped off yet, but yeah, Milwaukee probably wins easily.
I think it's
tonight.
a bigger problem with them. I mean, if Giannis isn't playing even defensively more than offensively, because Miami does have some talent inside that they can exploit now if he can't play. What does they got? Brook Lopez is like the only big guy that they have, really, right? Aside from Giannis. Who
Yeah,
else
but
are
he
you
was
bringing in there.
he was a defensive player of the year finalist, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, he plays well, but
Yeah, I mean the other thing too. Yeah, probably
On the boards,
beyond,
especially.
probably beyond. But this definitely probably affects the rest of the playoffs because even if he comes back, which I mean
Might
he
not
was
be
almost going to play
100%.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean how's it going to affect him? It's
Yeah.
a lower back injury or a tailbone injury or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And he's also had other injuries that he was dealing with. So I mean I gotta imagine this knocks them down a notch no matter what.
odds
Yeah.
makers certainly have. They're no longer the favorite in the East.
Who is
It's only 2 games
Boston.
in Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Good. No, good.
no, I was just gonna segue, but go ahead.
I was just going to jump to another series, but if we're
Yeah,
still,
all right.
still-
So
yeah.
go ahead. Which one? I don't have.
Well, I
any
wanted to
in mind.
talk about Sacramento and Golden State because somebody on this podcast Golden State going to the finals.
Yeah.
And somebody else really loved. I think two of us actually loved Sacramento in this series, but I just wanted to bring that up. That's all.
Well, here's what I'll say. I mean, I obviously wasn't on the pod last week, and when I was looking at the West, I
You
was looking at
saw
every
whatever
team.
odds were higher, and you took
No,
that one.
nothing
Oh.
to do with that. Every team seemed to have something that I thought was missing, and when it came to Sacramento, to me, it was just experience. Like I didn't think they were legit because they've kind of never been in this situation before. But they're an explosive offensive team as we've seen in the first two games. And I thought with Wiggins coming back and them being healthy,
They would
although
just
they're
flip a switch and start,
well, I
winning
did.
again.
I mean, they are the NBA champs, are they not? I mean, that's those types of teams that have won 4 championships can flip a switch. I'm not counting them out yet.
I am.
And the
Would you
odds
like to
for
bet?
them. Well, I don't have to bet against you because I can bet the odds on DraftKings at 390 for them to win in 6 and win 4 straight. So I might take a shot at that just to see, and
I'll
I can
give you
always hedge
5.
later.
Five. I'll give you
You gonna
5.
open up the book? You gonna
Well,
open up
look.
the book tonight.
They're going home. They can get a lot of momentum by
They're going
going home
home,
and
that's
winning
for
2
sure.
games. Yeah, well, they're going home for these next 2 games, so we'll see. I wouldn't count them out. I mean, they've been in situations like this before, right? And I don't think that they've played easier competition than Sacramento, who's never been in the playoffs in I don't know how many years. But look, I mean, I was wrong. I would say that they're not a legit team because they have some good offensive players for sure. Sabonis is good. De'Aaron Fox is great. I mean, but I looked down the rest of the list of the West, and I thought like those other teams really didn't have. There was something missing from every team, and when you have a healthy Golden State team coming off of a championship, they've been there before. They have the pedigree. That's why I went that way. I know Tommy went Lakers. I heard that. More
Wow,
of a
that was this.
more a
This
conspiracy pick than anything, probably, right?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The Swan
But
song, the LeBron
yeah,
Swan.
I don't know about that either. But we'll see what happens with that Memphis series. But Morant, didn't he get a little banged
He's
up
hurt,
last
but
game
Yeah,
too?
yeah, he's
Memphis
banged up.
is
Yeah,
actually-
he's out tonight, but it's a 16-point lead
Yeah, they're
now,
blowing him out right now.
almost halftime.
What do you guys think of the Clippers and the Suns? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that could be a 7-game series. I mean, I think they're pretty. I mean, obviously, I had the Suns going to the finals, but I thought the lack of Paul George was just going to be too much of a difference between the two teams. But they closed out game 1 where the Suns couldn't, and then game 2 Suns closed it out. So I don't think there's a huge advantage right now with the way they played in the first 2 games for either side. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that one could end up going 6 or 7.
I thought it was interesting that I think the Suns set a record last night for points scored by the starting lineup because my whole issue was they are not deep at all. They have nobody on the bench, and I think that's going to wind up being their downfall. Kawhi Leonard is playing out of his mind. He
knows how to
obviously
play in the
healthy.
playoffs. That's why he doesn't play that much in the regular season.
We were tossing around a question. I don't know if it was with you guys. I think it was with somebody else. It was if the Clippers, do what we think they're going to do and kind of lose a series, would you trade in a package Maxey for Kawhi Leonard?
Yes.
Yeah.
What happens? I mean, yes, but what do the Sixers end up doing this year? That's the other part.
Losing in the
Sixers losing the second round.
Eastern
Yeah.
Conference Finals or something.
I mean,
Yeah.
the argument for not trading Maxey for a superstar, I mean, to me,
Yeah.
is not even an argument.
Well, the
I mean, you
problem-
see with Maxey. he's
I
not
mean,
gonna
look,
I
trade-
agree, but Kawhi's 32 and he's always
Yeah.
hurt. Now he's
So-
not hurt now. He's healthy.
It's Maxey plus what else? If it's Maxey and Harris or
Maxey,
something.
Harris and
But then you have to assume Harden
Daniel.
stays because if Harden goes, then
Right.
I don't think you can trade Maxey because
yeah.
who else you're going to bring in? But Harden stays, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you do that. You try to go all in because, I mean, that's what it is. Your window with Embiid is going to be small, and Harden probably even smaller. So
Yeah, I was hesitant at first, but now I think Kawhi, Embiid, and Harden, I think they could win a championship. If
Yeah.
they're all healthy.
yeah. Health, of course. All right. Any other series jump out at you? We're at Denver, Minnesota. That's pretty much over.
Yep.
Boston Atlanta's. I guess Cleveland Knicks. That's gonna looks like
That's
it's gonna be a
interesting.
good series, right?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
I don't think there's an advantage one way or another
I,
in
I,
that
I,
one.
yeah, I would like to. I might actually go and check if there's a bet just for the series to go seven. I don't, I don't know who would win Game Seven. I think it's truly a toss up, but I think it's going seven.
Yeah, yeah, that seems like that could be in every other series.
Yeah,
2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yep.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the NBA. We're just at the 31-minute mark. It's good. It's about halfway. And we'll segue into the Phillies if everybody is ready. Let's talk some Phillies. They did pull out a win yesterday. They won the
Today.
first half of the doubleheader, lost the second, and then won. So they took 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. I guess they take 2 out of 3 from the Reds.
Two
No,
of four
Two of
split.
four.
two and
So they
two.
split the. It was a 4 game. They split. So I mean, they're back. They're looking better than they did in the last time we were probably on the podcast. And we haven't had Meeker for a few shows, so I'll turn it over to him. I think the last two you weren't here, and we covered the Phillies. So, what's your thoughts? I guess to start the season, and now ultimately where we're at today.
I think I'm a little disappointed in the way they started. I mean, I think they're picking it up, obviously, with the bats. I don't like that Thompson keeps tinkering a little bit with this lineup every day, and they move Bohm down to seventh, who leads the team in RBIs, who should be hitting higher in the order. That's the one problem I have with the lineup. But I heard Chalky say on the previous podcast, like they haven't been playing smart baseball a lot at all. Especially running the bases. They've been making a lot of base running mistakes and running through stop signs and not knowing what to do. So that's something they got to clean up. For their future, I mean, I think everything will be straightened out somewhat. They have to get Nolan Wheeler through 6 to 7 innings, though. That's a big thing because you can't tax their bullpen, when the aces are on the mound. And I heard a comment the other day. I was happened to listen to Sirius MLB Radio, and Craig Kimbrell was saying, "I don't mind if I get used in the sixth inning, the seventh inning, the eighth inning, the ninth inning, wherever you want to use me. Just let me know where I'm going to be used prior to the game, or at least let me know so I can be ready and know what I'm coming into." Um, and managers will make moves, obviously, based on the way the game goes, but they usually make moves like if the starter's getting through 6 innings, they go out and say, okay, you're going to be my sixth, seventh guy, you're going to be my eighth, you're going to be my ninth. Or they like to use bullpen pitchers in certain parts of the lineup. So if they know certain parts of the opposing team's lineup is coming up, say they're all right-handers and they want to go with Kimbrel, they'll say, okay, when we're coming into this part of the game and we're past the sixth inning, these are the guys you're going to face. So you could do a little research as a bullpen pitcher and understand that you're going to come in and face certain guys. Thompson doesn't seem to be making strategic moves like that. And I think it's just because he's kind of gun shy, because every move he's made with the bullpen has been pretty disastrous in the first 3 weeks of the season. But they got to get that straightened out too. So those are two things that I think they have to do to, kind of get back to 500 first and foremost. I mean, they're already 6, 7 games behind the Braves. I'm not saying that the division's over, in April, but the Braves are playing like we thought the Braves could play. So they're falling behind, pretty fast. But, Harper playing first base, that's an option. If you bring him back, play first, have him play first, move Bohm back to third. Not sure if you guys think that'll be a disaster in the making or if that will work. Or would you rather have Bone play first, have Harper DH, and keep rotating third baseman? Or that's the thing that they have to figure out as well. But if we get his bat in the lineup and he's ready to go, I mean that's going to be a big boost. First thing you got to do, get to 500, and then take it from there. They seem to be on the right track after this series that they played against the White Sox.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I've been critical of Topper too, but at the beginning of the year, you're still trying to find the roles of certain guys. You're trying to figure out. I mean, they went into the season thinking, I guess, Sir Anthony was going to be the closer, and hasn't really looked well. So now they moved Alvarado, who's looked well. So they're like moving pieces around the lineup. They're still trying to figure out who do we have here. So that happens in the beginning of a lot of series. It does start to see like the lineups coming together a little bit better. The relief pitchers are finding their roles a little bit better. So we'll see going forward there. One thing out before I move it on, I want to say is Chalky. I couldn't. He's to, he's preached it. I guess the last two or three podcasts, but keep Marsh playing. Don't take Marsh out. I mean,
Yeah.
he's proved that. Like, he's against lefties. You got to give him a chance. He's an everyday player now. I mean, the way he's playing, keep him in the lineup. Let him prove that he can't hit lefties or he can't play against lefties. But you got to give him the chance. You got to get these Paches and Caves and Clemens not in the lineup as much as possible, and get guys like Marsh in it. So I just wanted to
He's
give him
probably
credit there.
listening to you about that. I don't think you're going to be sitting Marsh very often
Yeah,
because
it may have
Marsh is
finally sunk in.
second in Major League Baseball in extra base hits.
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, even
amazing.
last night he, he had the double that. I mean, and the thing with this Phillies team, it's just like they're the most predictable Phillies team I've ever watched. They won Game 1 of that doubleheader. I was texting back and forth with my wife's uncle, and I said, "Oh, the Phillies 100% lose Game 2. More than likely, they're going to get shut out." And they got shut out. They're the most predictable. They score 15 runs. They're not getting hits the next game. They've done this like for years. It seems like they're the most predictable
The, the,
team, and
the,
it's
the one guy I was going to, I was all ready to come on to the show and kind of really dress down.
Turner.
Had a really good game today. I need more from Turner.
He needs
more.
power. I mean, I need home runs.
He's got 19 singles before
Yeah.
today. He had 19 singles, 2 doubles, and 2 triples. I mean, yeah, he's hitting 300, but come on, man. We need more than that from Trey Turner.
You need RBIs. You
We
need
need
men in
slugging,
scoring
we
position.
need RBIs, we
Yeah.
need clutch hitting, and he was not doing it prior to today. Today he had a monster game. Hopefully that's the start of something big, but you need more from Turner. And Castellanos, we need power from him
Yeah.
too. He's got no home runs. Come on.
Look up and down their lineup. They don't really have a lot of home runs.
Why?
Most of their
They got to start hitting
Yeah,
home runs.
I
They need
don't know.
slugging.
I don't know the reason for that. It seems like Castellanos, since he's been here, his whole power stroke has just
Gone.
been
Yeah.
just-
Well, he had that
it-
long swing last year, and you saw what happened. Now he's trying to tighten it up. And what's funny is that we complained not just us. Everybody complains like, oh, baseball sucks. It's home runs and walks. And now it's like they're not getting home runs. They're getting a bunch of hits, and they're not scoring as many runs. You're like, wow, we need more home runs. What are they doing? I mean, it just goes to show you home runs are a different maker. It's hard to get 3 hits or 2 hits in a row.
You also
4
lost 70 home runs
Well,
by
yeah.
injuries.
But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it's baseball has proven that you need home runs to be successful because it's hard to string a lot of hits together to get hit unless you're just batting 400 with men in scoring position. But Chalky, anything that on the Phillies front, anything that you've seen since the last podcast, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, they've been able to score some runs, even if inconsistently, because what the Red Series, it was 13-0, and then 13-3, and then they got shut out again in the bottom half of the doubleheader last night. But I think you just made a good point with the home runs, because I mean, right now, team number 1 in batting average, number 1 in hits, they're number 1 in doubles, they're second, number 1 in tied for number 1 in triples, they're second in. Or I'm sorry, 5th in on base plus slugging, 4th in slugging. So they're not hitting the bombs, and they're not. I mean, they're getting. They've had some big games the other day, but a team's that's that high in all those positions, you'd expect to be 13-6 maybe at this point. But the lack of home runs and the lack of power to get some of those guys home, and then of course the pitching being lackluster at times. Their pitching stats are all pretty atrocious when you look at the team rankings, which accounts for obviously their slow start. But the bullpen has looked a little better. It's early, but it worries me that you can't. You're lucky to get 6 from your 2 best starters.
They got to be better. Those 2 guys have to be better, like Mika said.
I mean, look, they won yesterday, the first game, but Wheeler struggled in that 1 inning, and he had a bunch of pitches, and like it was at the 3rd or the 4th, and it's like you got a doubleheader, like you don't want to be using your bullpen for 4 innings in the first half, and the bullpen actually held up well because after the first inning, I don't think they gave up any runs, but if the pitching gets a little better and they get a little more pop as the weather gets warmer, they'll be there. Look, it's 4 of the 6 NL playoff teams last year have losing records right now. Like the Braves and the Mets are still out there, but the other guys are struggling too. It's early. I'm not saying they can't win the division, but I don't think they're going to win the division still.
The
But I
Braves might be
mean,
the best team in baseball,
yeah,
let
They
alone the
absolutely.
National League.
definitely are.
They could very well be. And to go back to what you mentioned earlier, Meeker. I mean, why not try Harper at first base? Because I think if nothing else, if he can play it all right, then you can keep Bohm at third, and then you're shifting either Schwarber or Castellanos to the DH spot. So you're taking one of those gloves off the field. And then if you got to make a move somewhere down the line, you're looking for a corner outfielder, which might be more of an option out there in the trade market than saying, well, we need a third baseman or we need a first baseman if Bohm's going to play first or he's going to play third. So you're not limiting yourself if you're looking for another piece later down the line, if you can have either one of those corner outfield positions available. Because Harper's coming back is great, but the other thing is you need him to play the field because you got to get one of those other guys off it. And if they're not coming off, you're not making your defense any better.
Right there is why I'm not crazy about it, is because I think the defense has been pretty good this year, and now you're going to put Harper out there, and now you're almost back into the Rhys Hoskins situation again, where now you're weak at first base, But I think Bohm's played a pretty good first base so far. I don't know if I want to weaken the defense by doing that. Maybe every once in a while you throw him out there, but every day, I don't want Harper playing first base every day.
Well, what you have to do is you have to look into the future too and say to yourself or ask yourself, is Bohm going to be my first baseman next year? Because Hoskins, after this injury, I don't think he's going to play another game in a Phillies uniform. That's my opinion. So if you think that Bohm is better off just playing first base and going out and trying to find a third baseman, and in the meantime, you're better off defensively with having Sosa play third. Maybe you just kind of continue to play him at first and just put Harper at DH until he can play the outfield, because getting a full year at first would probably be better for him if that's the direction you're going. But if you think that he's your third baseman, then I'd rather put him back at third, and have Harper play first until he can't, until you figure out he can't. We'll see. He's a good athlete, so we'll see.
The other thing, though, with Harper playing first is now you want to protect his elbow. He's going to have to be making, kind of weird throws every so often, to get the guy at second on a double play and stuff like that. I don't want to risk Harper getting hurt at all.
And you also don't want that to carry over to his at bats. I mean, he's concentrating.
Yeah.
You've seen so many times where guys struggle
Yes.
here or there on the field.
Yes.
It could hamper their hitting. So, I mean, we haven't seen him, so we don't know. But I agree with Meeker too. I think the thing with Bohm, it depends on what you see his future. I mean, you don't want to keep moving him from third to first, and then if he's your third baseman, you need him to play third. If he's going to be your future first baseman, then let's get him out there. Let's get him more reps. Let's start put him in the position.
I mean, clearly the move is that that Harper play first base permanently from here on out, and then you let Hoskins and Nola walk, and you sign Ohtani to play the outfield for next year because Harper's at first now. But I mean, I'm just looking at the free agents real quick. Like first base coming up this year, other than Hoskins, Belt, C.J. Cron, nobody's.
That name, C.J. Cron, is
That's
a
a good
guy
name.
that they might trade
He's
for.
a good name. He's a good name, but nothing jumping off. And then third base, you got Chapman. Justin Turner. So, there's no studs necessarily. I like Chrome, but I'm not going to call him a stud at first. But I do agree that you got to kind of pick where you want Bohm to play most games and not try to go back and forth. And,
Chapman's stud at third base. He's a stud third baseman. He's a great third baseman.
I don't think they're spending big money on it.
He's going to.
He's not a great hitter, but he's a great third baseman.
Yeah, I mean, if he has another year like he did last year, he'll get paid. And, I don't know if they're going to go that far, but
one of the other things I found interesting, and I just jotted it down. I wasn't 100% sure. It was more anecdotal, and as I start doing some research, they've only played in 3 one-run games so far this year. I find that to be just a little. It's like it does seem that way when you watch them. They either win and they're going to win, or they lose and they're going to lose. I mean, aside from I guess Sir Anthony blew a game and they came back in the 9th in a game, which were your 2 of the 3 one-run games. It's like they're kind of never really close to games. They're like start wire to wire in most cases.
It is a little weird. I mean, they got blown out at least a good 4 or 5 times where they
And
thought
they
that.
blew and they
And they blew
would,
teams out. Yeah,
yeah.
it was a stat I heard. A lot of it was based on last year, but even to start this year, like the Dodgers had the most wins or whatever. Like, but they say if you're going to bet the Dodgers, don't bet a run line or money line. Bet them to win by more than two, because most of they didn't win a lot of close games. Like the vast majority of their wins were 2+ runs. So lay more than the run line and the money. Get a little bit more value there because they just didn't win close games. I thought that was interesting. But
Yeah, I mean I've read some articles where people play just run lines, and even the regular run line where it's like minus whatever 1.5.
yeah.
Just instead of the money, because the odds are like actually pretty drastic too in some cases when it's a run line versus a money line. So
Yeah, because the run lines are like more closer to the like the -110 lines that you see in like football or some of the other like a point spread type
yeah,
thing. In some cases, not always, but
What I've been doing is I've been looking at. I just bet the money line, but then I also do a parlay where like I'll look at the batter versus pitcher matchups, and then I'll just do some research and see if a guy owns a pitcher. I mean, obviously he sees him well. I just bet one hit. One hit for a couple of guys, one hit, because if they're going to win the game, these guys are going to be getting hits anyway. And then you could bring the parlay to plus 180 or plus 200 or something like that.
yeah. I
To win the
mean,
game.
especially what we're talking here. You're betting 10, 15, $20. You're not putting 500 on games
Right.
where minus. You're
Yeah, it's just
so
to
if
keep
you're
your
putting
interest.
$5 on a game and the line's minus 230, it's like, all right, what's the point?
Right.
What is that going to get?
Right.
So when you start building these parlays, now you're talking. It's a little
Yeah.
bit interesting. So,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. Anything else? We're short. We're
Well,
time wise.
I have
About
a
Hurts'
spot-
contract?
I was going to say I have a spot bet in baseball before we move on from baseball that I'd like to give out.
Yeah, I mean, we can. Hurts' contract was a great contract for both teams. It's a cap-friendly contract for the Eagles. It's probably one of the best contracts ever written in the history of the NFL. Go on, Jason.
Thank you. So Marcus Stroman right now has been lights out for the Cubs through 4 games. He's 31 years old, so he's kind of in his prime now. If you look back at his ERAs over the last 3 or 4 years, 2019 he was 3.22. 2020 he sat out for COVID, which is kind of a weird thing, but he decided to opt out. 2021 is 3.02. Last year 3.5. So in a sport where basically if your average is in the threes, your ERA is in the threes, you're pretty decent. Something's going on this year where he's been lights out so far. He's got a .75 ERA through 4 games. His strikeouts, more than innings pitched and stuff like that. He's still 55-1 for the Cy Young Award on Bet Rivers. He's down to 35-1 on DraftKings. So you have to shop around. I think Chalky said he found 41-1 on FanDuel. Worth a couple bucks right now because nobody's really lighting the world on fire as a pitcher. And if he continues, why not? I don't know. I think it's worth a few bucks at 55-1.
Sounds good to me. And we have Nika, go ahead. So, I was saying in jest, but forget about Hurts. Like what you think of Hurts. He was getting a contract, so his skill set, his worth, and that's out the door. He was getting the $50 million and all that. So you can't use the money and is he worth it? Because that's what he was getting, regardless. None of these guys are worth that type of money. But what do
we
you
knew
think?
that was coming. Yeah, that was inevitable. I'm just wondering now that he got paid, what is Herbert, what is Burrow going to get?
They're going to get more
at this point.
They're going to get more.
So.
It's going to come down to from what I read, a lot of it had to do with that Jeffrey Lurie was willing to pay like cash up front and different things like that for the cap implications to be less. I think it was like the first 3 or 4 years of Hurts is equal to like the 3rd year of Daniel Jones' contract.
Yeah, those early cap numbers are crazy. Like it's like because they shifted some to this coming year, which would have been his rookie contract. So it's like 6 and then 15.
But
and
that
like
comes
20
down to
something.
Lurie. That comes down to the owner willing to spend that type of money in cash up front. So it's going to come down, and Hurts willing to take less guaranteed or blah 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 to have a team to be able to still build. So it's going to come down to is the owner of not San Diego, whatever, LA, willing to do what Lurie did? Is Herbert willing to, take away some of his guarantees?
That's the question. That's the question. Because Burrow will get a bigger contract. I think that's a lock. Herbert could. I think Herbert is going to try for it. does San Diego go for the or
San
San
Diego
Diego
won't.
still? I'm sorry. I let
So
me
I
let,
always
let,
did the same thing.
let,
So.
let me take my we got Del Rocca-itis, but that owner is one of the cheaper
Cheap.
ones in the league. So again, like we talked about a couple big signing bonus, you got to put that in escrow. He's going to try not to pay. I think they're going to try not to pay him as much as Hurts, because they're going to say, well, Hurts went to the playoffs twice. Herbert's never won a playoff game, whatever. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, Hurts very likely ends up at least the second highest paid quarterback, maybe third by the time the season starts. Could be fourth, but I don't think Jackson's going to get that kind of contract now. But
Jackson's
he's
got a hell of an agent, though.
Yeah, his
yeah
father-in-law.
himself. But it'll be interesting, and they gave themselves a little bit more room in these next couple years to add guys here or there with some of the cap implications. And the no trade I think was interesting because that was probably trade off as far as
Yeah, but what is
money,
that?
but
But what is
They
the
all
no
are
trade?
no trade.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Hurt.
well,
Wentz-
some of them do it. Like they worked with Wentz to give him a destination he wanted, but they had no right. Like he didn't have any right to ask to go to certain places. So
right, but they were able to trade him, and they got a first round pick for. I mean, and
yeah,
if the no trade, maybe and it just looks good on paper. I don't.
Yeah, I
it
agree.
doesn't-
you just don't see it a lot in the NFL contracts. And it's the
Yeah.
first Eagles no trade clause, I think. So
I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's unprecedented for them to put that into a contract.
it's an ego thing for these guys, but you look at what Brady's been doing, and just he takes less, so the team has money to spend to make the team better, so the team could win. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
would
but
hope
Brady also got paid for years and years, and there's always been rumors of Brady getting TB12 Foundation
Oh,
getting.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
money.
that
So
was like they were they were
know,
sponsoring his clubs or
just
whatever.
like-
I mean,
it
look,
was.
the league,
Harden and the Sixers.
but the
You-
players' union, won't allow for guys that like if Hertz was like, yeah, I'll take 15 million a year, I'm good with that.
Oh,
That would
yeah.
never. The
Yeah.
players' union would never allow something like that to
Yeah.
happen. These
No,
minimums, that 50 million a year, or whatever, was
I
definitely.
mean, I think
That
the
was
union,
how-
the agents are probably mad that Watson's contract at fully guaranteed at 230 or 50, whatever it was, it didn't become the precedent because Hurts really, if he doesn't get injured, his contract is only guaranteed at like 100 and something or 130, and then like injury guarantee could go up to 170.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, Mahomes screwed that up because then he signed after Watson and he took kind of that. But you still, I mean, you saw with Mahomes who took a team friendly deal with the cap, they still had to get rid of Tyreek Hill. I mean, they still couldn't afford certain.
yeah,
level
they weren't going to
guys.
give him a big contract.
Right,
I
and
mean,
Mahomes still had to win with less talent than he had in prior years.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
still going to come down to Hurts is going to have
yeah,
to do.
I mean,
more
you got
with
this
that.
offense. All your primary offensive players, aside from let's say Kelsey and Johnson, you got them locked up for another 3 years, right? And so your team's in place there. You're not going to lose those guys. Those are young. Defense is a whole different story. They got older guys, 1 year deals here and there. They're going to do some work there. But I mean, look, the Chiefs defense wasn't anything special, and they won because they had the best player in the league. Although Hurts was probably the best player on the field in that game. But I mean, Mahomes is just great. And it was good enough. The defense was good enough to get him through in the Super Bowl.
Hey, Chalky, I had a question real fast, Button. But about a month ago, we talked about how Lamar wouldn't, the Washington Commanders football team, whatever you want to call them these days, wouldn't make that move because
Commanders.
they were selling the team. But now they have sold the team. So does this open up another opportunity for him to sign out, with Washington rather than Baltimore because they have new ownership?
Timing wise, I don't think it would happen this year. And Jackson was involved enough, like with getting Beckham in. Like it's, I don't think there's going to be a contract with Baltimore, but it seems like he's resigned or is going to go along with playing on the tag this year. I don't know when they'll finalize that deal and when they would be able to start spending money. But I mean, hell, Harris will spend money. Like we know that.
The only thing I'll say with Harris is he likes to, from what we've seen, he likes to kind of tighten up the organization first before he spreads out to like improving the team. I mean, at least that was the formula with the Sixers. He got the marketing. He marketed it a certain way. He got the tickets. Kind of
Football's a
down,
little
like all that.
different, though.
Yeah, Right, football is a moneymaker from day one, but
Yeah.
I thought I saw it wasn't finalized because there was some like black
yeah, I
owner
don't
that
think
wanted
it's
to give
actually
them like
finalized. But it sounds
cash.
like
Like
it's going to happen.
It's not. They sent something to the league to kind of review, but it's not. So there's another offer from a Canadian businessman, I think, that could still be in play, but the league has to sign off. But there's Snyder wants an indemnity clause because he did a lot of bad shit. I guess that. Wow, sorry, but he doesn't want to get sued and be liable for some of the stuff that went on in that disaster of an organization the last 20+ years. I don't know if the league's going to go for that, but I mean, the league wants that franchise to sell and sell at a $6 billion plus market value, right? So they'll get it. They'll get something done. In the end, but I do think like a Jackson to Washington is probably more likely next year, assuming he just plays on the tag
So
in
then he
Baltimore this
should
year.
play on the tag because
Yeah.
then they're gonna roll out the Brinks truck for him if he can stay through a season,
Well,
which is
that's the
the
problem.
problem.
yeah, he gets hurt every year.
Yeah. Well, especially
Mika's
playing on
like
the
the Broad
tag.
Street Hustle archivist. He knows he can go back to six,
Yeah,
eight
I didn't
shows of
think you
what we
listened to
talked.
the shows when you weren't on. I didn't
Huh?
think you listened when you weren't on. I thought
Yeah, I
you just
listen.
listened when you were on.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Still encourage people to listen,
You got to do
Well,
more encouraging.
even if I'm not on.
I know we're wrapping up, but to what Jason was asking about earlier, the exact games in the Cavs Knicks series, 7 games is plus 140. That's the co-favorite with 6 games, both plus
Wow, that's
140.
low.
So
Plus 140. So
Yeah.
To go
but
7 is plus 140.
That's
6
probably
and
the
six,
shortest odds, right?
6 and 7 are both 140, and then 5, which probably pretty unlikely, barring an injury, is plus 330.
Oh, well, they really didn't even
They
try to set
well, they
lines
juice
like
these.
that.
They're juice
Yeah,
these lines
that's
more for
horrible.
sure. They weren't
Holy
looking to put
smoke.
a,
To make
a
them
fair
both
line.
plus 140 is insane. First of all,
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and now
I guess this is DraftKings.
that's DraftKings. Yes. Now the Sixers, that favorite is a sweep there. So if you don't think they're going to sweep, you might have value.
Yeah, I might try to 5 games with them.
5 games is sweep is plus 140. Excuse me, plus 120. 5 is 180. 6 is 550.
wow, that's crazy.
chance.
Yeah,
And-
that's basically what they're telling you.
And the heavy favorite on the line in the Kings Warriors series is 7 games. So
That's
they
the
think the
heavy favorite.
Warriors are going to start pulling. Yeah, that's
Well,
130.
I think they look at the Warriors during the season. It's like they stunk it on the road.
They
and
can't
they're
win
good
on the road.
Right, so
Yeah.
they're gonna lose all 3 of those and win the 3 home games. And
Well, I mean, no Draymond game 3, but I think the league, if you're a conspiracy theorist, the league doesn't want the Warriors going out in 4 or 5, so they suspended Draymond, but they'll do something maybe to make the series go at least 6.
oh, they'll get the calls. I mean, there's only so much they could do, but I mean, they'll get the calls, no doubt about it. All right, I think that wraps up another successful Broad Street Hustle, episode 51. Follow us on Twitter at Broad Street Hustle. Keep watching us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, leave some comments, leave some feedback. Much appreciated. We got our draft show next week. We got the Derby the following week. More to come. More to come. That's all I can say. Thanks, and have a great night.
See you guys.